To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Welcome to the Talk About the Magic podcast, where you'll find inspiration and encouragement tied together with the magic of Disney. Now, here's your host, Joseph Ballesteros.
What is going on, Magic Cheers? Welcome to another Talk About the Magic episode. I am excited that you've joined me here today. This is episode 186, if I'm talking right. And right off the bat, some new things have happened. Just that, that's what Walt always suggested. He said to keep trying different angles, keep looking different ways, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So basically, as I've said over in the previous episodes, that I've been doing these recordings live on Instagram. Well, that's changed again. I've moved those live recordings here on the Facebook group. If you haven't already joined the Facebook group, I would highly recommend for you to do it. It's a lot of fun. It's a way for us to encourage and inspire one another. I'm wanting to get more of an interaction with you guys, so that way you can share your own thoughts, your own goals, so we can all motivate each other. So if you go to the show notes, you'll see the actual post, or the link, I should say, to the Facebook group. Join there. I think it's gonna basically say that you have to request permission, but I mean, unless you literally do not want to be inspirational or motivate, I should say, or be motivated, I'm pretty much accepting everyone, because this group really is about that. So we talk Disney and we talk about motivation. That's the point of the group. So like I said, if you guys want to check it out, please be sure to check out the link in the show notes and head over there, join there. And then you can watch these videos and interact with me. And the Facebook page has kind of gone dormant, only because Facebook is very, very, very strict on what they're allowing and not allowing. And it's as far as what people can see. So while I have a lot of, you guys liking the page, which is awesome, unfortunately, y'all don't see any of it unless I basically pay so you could see it. And then more frustrating is, now I've found out, with all the new changes to Facebook, that's going to even be harder to do now. They're going to be, making it more difficult for you as a page to promote yourself in a way of saying like, hey guys, look at what I'm doing, which is, it's irritating. If you like my page, it's because you probably like what I'm doing. So why should I have to be paying for you to see what I'm doing, right? But I digress. Anyway, so the Facebook group has given me freedom. And the reason why, and you're welcome to always like me as a friend, or add me as a friend, but Facebook does do a cutoff on friends, and that's why I wanted to do something different, and that's why I did the group, because there's really no limit there. So you can check it out there. The group is called Talk About the Magic, so if you can't for some reason hit the show notes, just search it up there. You'll find the group, and we can go from there. So that's what's been going on. And that took a little more time than I expected, but today's show, we're going to jump right into it as we always do. So today's show, the title is "This Person Doesn't Like Me. Shouldn't I Force Them?" So what I'm saying there, with the question that we come up with here, is there is so much stuff happening in today's world. It's funny because the world has probably always been this opinionated. People have always probably been this opinionated. But for some reason, now with the help of social media, we not only get those opinions thrown in our face, we get very personal. And I did a previous episode regarding, the effect of social media and how it can really mess, with your day and mess with who you are and your morals and how not to change them. This goes into that kind of field, but a little deeper. This could be something that's physical. Somebody who actually does know you, maybe an employee at work, has flat out said, "I don't like you." Whether it's because of your stance on certain beliefs or what certain things that you think should be done a certain way, and they just don't agree and they get aggressive in that sense. And you find these kind of things out, of course, from, Billy over in this department said this to Sarah over here. Sarah said it to Mike, and Mike said it to Joanne, and Joanne said it to, to David. And every single one of them said, whatever you do, don't tell Joseph. Don't tell him. Don't tell him I told you this. And then Joseph finds out eventually, right? Oh, snap. They don't like me. Okay. So, but put your name there, right? So the question comes into, what are you supposed to do? For me, this is a really serious question, and it's a tough one. And maybe you're like me, where we are very people-pleasing. We want to please people. We're a people pleaser. That doesn't sound right. I just want to say people mover, but that's really not right. That's a Disney ride. Okay, so people pleaser. We want to please people. We want to make them happy in a way that when we feel like, they don't like us for some reason, immediately we're going to them saying, why not? What did I do? Why did they say this? Well, what if I do this? And well, maybe, okay, well, what? And all of a sudden we get in this weird little tug of war in our own minds of, why doesn't this person like me? And how do I get them to like me? And, we really don't ever give the time of day of, should I care if they like me? Now, I'm going to get into this kind of vaguely and then get a little more deeper. That's a very, broad statement. Should I care? To an extent, of course you should care. You don't want to we're not trying to be on this earth to be jerks to another. We're not trying to be on this earth to bring hate toward one another or anything like that. But when you when you have something real to yourself and you have something that is truly, 100% ground you believe in, it is what you stand for. And I'm going to get into more detail about that, but here we go in the broad part. That's worth standing up for, right? And even if that means somebody else isn't going to like you for it, that's something you should stick with. Now, going deeper into it, obviously, this isn't referring to anything that's going to cause anybody physical harm, mental harm, anything like that. I'm not over here saying, if you believe that you should be able to rob people for fun and beat them up kind of deal, no, that you are wrong. And I will stand by my belief by saying you are wrong. That is not what I'm referring to here when I'm saying to please people. What I'm saying is, let's get into a kind of a deeper realm here. I say deeper. I guess I shouldn't pump y'all up in that way. I'm not saying that deeper, but let's bring up Disney. This is what we're talking about. But we talk so much Disney, and we've gone through this before. If you're a fan of Disney, you probably have been to this kind of conversation at least one time. When you mention to a friend or a family and you say, we're going to Disney again this year, or we're going to go to Disney, and my family, we really love Disney, doing this. Or we really like, all of a sudden you get the question of why? You know how much money that costs? Like, why would you do that? You know what else you could do instead? That's not good. You shouldn't be spending that much money on that when you know that this is, later is going to be needed for that, and you should instead put it, all the input gets into it. And all of it, not to say that they don't like you after that because you're going to Disney, but you're getting that sensation of that you're getting that, feeling of resentment in that sense, where they're saying, like, I don't agree with what you're saying and I don't like what you're saying. And, that kind of affects you negatively because you start thinking about what they're saying. You're saying, you know what? What's funny is it won't change your idea. You're still going to go to Disney, right? Because, you still go to Disney. But it changes your feeling for it. And you feel bummed out. And you feel stressed out. And then all of a sudden, you kind of find yourself making excuses as to why you're going to go. Like, you have to do that, right? It's just because, we got to save this much, and maybe we got a little more on our income tax, and that's why. Or it's just because we want to do this kind of big vacation one last time before we kind of take a break from. And all of a sudden, we start kind of caring about what they say. Now this is a very light example in that sense, because obviously it is just visiting a theme park in that way. But, when we get deeper into it, when it's regarding, religion is a tough thing. It's a very touchy thing because who's to say you're right? Who's to say you're right? And we get into this really big argument. And then, of course, political beliefs. Oh my gosh, that might be even a little hotter topic than religion right now, because at least religion, we can kind of all agree that love is a big factor. But with politics, it is crazy right now, and what's happening and how people kind of. I remember hearing a radio show, and they were talking to some people, and this was regarding Trump and everything. They said, you voted for Trump and blah blah blah, and they said, yeah, we voted for Trump. And what has happened? Well, I've lost friends because of my vote. They say that they can no longer be my friend because of who I voted for, and that to me was an eye opener, because when you realize, well, first off, what kind of friend was this that is not being a friend because of someone that you voted for, that you personally might just have certain beliefs with on certain stances, compared to the other candidate. But we've had that happen. If you look on Facebook, don't look on Facebook, but if you looked on Facebook, you would find so much hateful comments regarding both parties. And so you get this weird thing where you start feeling like, well, I don't want to be looked down upon, or I don't want people to talk, bad about me or make fun of me. And so you start trying to make up kind of excuses as to why you're doing what you're doing or why you believe the way you believe. And what's interesting is we get in the weird, like I said, it's a normal thing. It's a normal human kind of reaction, but we get in this weird kind of, rat on a wheel, or a mouse on a wheel, where we just keep on going over and over in the same kind of way, in the same, speed of just trying to make things right. But it's never going anywhere, because that person already has decided something and they're not changing their ideas. And I don't know why we feel like we should to make them happy. And what we end up starting to do is we keep trying to make them see us in a light that we think we deserve or we should be seen. And we have to kind of take ourselves out of the equation and look, with different eyes. If they truly believe something and they truly believe strongly with it, let me use this as an example. We talk about not being around negative people, right? We say, don't, the whole point with Disney is positivity. We're positive. Don't hang around with negative people. These negative people are going to bring you down. When you say, I have a dream or I have a goal, and they're telling you can't do it, that's unrealistic, that's not true. Don't hang around with those people. And a lot of times, it's exactly what you do. You cut ties with those kind of people because you don't want that negativity in your life. But let's look at their angle. They might not see themselves as negative. They might see themselves more as somebody who's realistic. Somebody who looks at you and sees not potential, and I don't say this to be, mean and saying that they're doing it in a mean way, but they see flaws. They see, how could you say that you want to lose, 60 pounds when you're over here eating this and you're not working out 5 times a day and you're doing this? And instead of trying to motivate you to reach your goal, they start bringing you down, and in their eyes, they're seeing it as maybe even helping you not get your hopes too high, because you're going to fall down and they don't want to, see you get hurt in that way. So all of a sudden in their mind, they're like, you know what? You're going to be like that. You're going to be over here, like, ignore my advice that I'm trying to help you with. I'm going to cut my ties with you. And we get this weird kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like opposites didn't attract in this sense. And so that's why I say you got to kind of sometimes you got to take yourself out of the equation and look from the outside in. But the reason why I say that is because when we are trying to please and appease what people are putting, as what we can or can't do, or what we should or should not believe in, or anything like that, we end up kind of losing ourselves, right? And we know this already. We've kind of talked about this, but we lose ourselves because we keep trying to match an identity that doesn't exist. For us, it's one that they're making up, or one that we feel like we should be trying to live in their, in their own made up little bubble that they've put. So when we hear these things, right? You can't do it. You're stupid. That's not right. I don't know why you say that. Or why would you do this? That's ridiculous. Like, when we hear all these kind of negative things, or strictly, I don't like you because you're like this, or you joke around too much, or, you think you're all that and you're not, and we hear these kind of negative things. It can be something that really brings us down to a whole nother level that is sometimes even nearly impossible to get out, because once that starts piling on, somebody else comes in and they could pile on. Before you know it, you're just not getting out of there, and you're getting this weird funk where you're just consistently feeling negativity, consistently feeling like you can't reach what you're trying to do. So there you go. Edit that out later, or not. We'll leave it in. It wasn't that loud. My phone rang. But yeah, so the idea behind it is more of the fact that when people come at you and try to tell you something that's negative, or that's opposite of what you're trying to do, or trying to bring an idea of who you are that it really isn't you, you can't let that affect you. It's, like I said, it's an easy thing for us to feel like, as humans, we want to appease them and make them happy, but we're going to get into why we can't do that. And my eye is really itching here. So we look at with Walt Disney, right? Let's get into this. We look at Walt Disney and we see what he's done and we see everything he did. And we tend to think again, oh, well, it's because he had this, he had that, and, he was able to reach this because, he had this opportunity. But the fact of the matter is, everything that he tried to do in pretty much every situation, there was some type of issue or negative person that did not like Walt for what he was doing. And in order to kind of come back at him, whether they would do it through backstabbing, through saying no to a loan he was needing, quitting the studio, doing a strike on the studio or stuff like that, it was a real issue for Walt in that sense. So for him to try to appease everyone, can you imagine? Let's talk about the strike. If you're not aware, in the Disney studios, there was a huge strike that happened, and it was a big deal because you had a lot of animators walk out demanding things, and it was a real interesting thing to see. They went to kind of a court and did all that stuff, and it was interesting to see Walt. And whether you believe he was right or wrong in what he did, he didn't change what he felt was right. He didn't change what he felt he was doing, correctly. And even though in the end, he could have said, well, I'm going to just stop doing what I'm doing and either quit altogether or just say, I apologize and everything. What he ended up doing, of course, the court made him, come to an agreement with the animators. But he did believe in the end that what he was doing was right. And we see that even with Disneyland, when people told him no, when people said, that's ridiculous, you don't have enough money, I can't see it, it just doesn't make sense. He didn't let those kind of things change him. He didn't try to make them feel better, and he didn't even try to explain himself. He wouldn't go on these, long explanations of why what he's doing is important and why it should matter to you. To the people who was close to him, sure, of course he told him, his reasoning behind it. But if it was just somebody coming off saying, like, you're never going to do this, all right. He wasn't like, well, let's sit down and I'm going to try to convince you otherwise. He let them go with what they want, and he focused on himself, never trying to appease them, never trying to, make them happy, because he was focused on what he was trying to do. And again, once we realize, once we have a goal and a mission set up, it doesn't matter whether somebody likes us for it or not. It doesn't matter if somebody's coming, against us negatively. We cannot let that change our idea and our mindset. So, our quotes for today. I'm I'm thinking of all these different things, and so I'm like kind of going off tangent, and I want to focus in again. So our quotes for today. So our first one is from Walt. Of course, almost everyone warned us that Disneyland would be a Hollywood spectacular, a spectacular failure. That's from the book, The Quotable Walt Disney. So this one, I like this quote because, again, it goes back to what we were talking about. It's not like he wasn't getting people saying it was going to fail. It's not like he was getting people who were coming against him and saying, what you're doing is wrong, it doesn't make sense, it's not going to work, we don't like what you're doing, everything like that. Like, he was getting it. He was getting pretty big negative responses. But that didn't let him, that didn't affect him. He kept going toward it. And so I want you to kind of just think for a second. And that person or that idea or whatever it is that's coming negatively toward you, that's taking you out of your idea for your own goal, your own mission, it's taking you out of accomplishing that. I want you to think, what would happen if you listened to them? What would happen if you stopped trying to do what you wanted to do, to accomplish your goal, and instead start trying to please them? Start trying to make them feel better for whatever is going on with them and them being negative toward you. And you start trying to make sure that they're happy. And then I want you to think opposite. What would happen if you didn't care what they said? If you stopped listening to their negativity? If you stopped trying to get them to like you and to think of you differently and just focused in on what you were trying to achieve? What would happen? I can almost guarantee that if you look at that second option, you will be so much happier, 100% happier. I'm going to turn off my watch. This is crazy. I already had turned it off. I don't know why it keeps going off. But you'd be so much happier that second option, if you actually thought about it. And the thing is, we don't, right? We don't think about it. We immediately hear that negative thing and we just, oh my goodness, oh no, okay, well, let me try to figure out, or why do they do that, or why don't they? And we start trying to please them. But now I would say, really take a moment and think, do they have a valid point, right? Are they bringing a true concern up? Because if they are, that's different. Like I said, if they're bringing an honest opinion and saying, look, you probably shouldn't go on a water-only diet. That's not good for you. Like, that's a valid thing they're bringing up to you, and they're not saying they don't like you for it. But I'm talking about those people who constantly are being negative toward you, who are always being, opposite of what you're trying to achieve, and think like, yeah, if they're not bringing up a valid point, why am I going to listen to them? Why am I going to take the time to give that notion that they have credibility? You shouldn't. And always think of that. Think of those two options. The first option, please them, appease them. How will I feel? Second option, ignore them. Don't care whether they like me. Focus on my goal and achieve my dream and my mission that I put in front of me. How will I feel then? And you'll see, obviously, that second option will always work out better, and so you want to go for that one. The second quote is coming from the Proverbs here. It is dangerous to be concerned with what others think of you. Proverbs 29:25. I like that one because that makes it real. That brings in some real life right there, because it is dangerous. If you start trying to please what others are saying about you, or trying to make others feel, happy or like you in that sense, it goes back to that, previous episode that we talked about. You start changing who you are. You start changing what you stand for. You start changing what makes you you, and that can lead to a whole mess of issues and problems. So again, guys, I hope you're getting the point of the message. I hope you're understanding what the show is about, and the importance of not focusing on whether people like you or not, but instead focusing 100% on that goal and the dream that you have set in front of you to achieve it. It could take time, and that's why we want to keep people who are positive around us to help us and motivate us to keep going. But in all that time that it's going to take for you to get, to where you're going, you may run into someone who will be negative to you, who will be mean to you, who does not like you for whatever reason. And it's important to not focus on them and keep going toward your dream and goal. So I really hope you enjoyed today's show. Again, please be sure to join the Facebook group. If you haven't, you could see the actual mistakes that are happening now. I don't know what was going on with my watch. It just kept ringing. I had to keep turning it off. I have it on silent. I don't know why it's doing that, but that's the fun thing. You get on the group, you can see the mistakes, and you can see me prepping here to do the show. So again, I'll have the show notes there. And of course, the links to everything today, the quotable Walt Disney book. And if you want to help with the podcast, you could check out some of the apparel that I got on TeePublic. It's a lot of fun doing there, being able to put up designs there. So check it out there. You could, check all of that and be a part of the community as well. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's show and being here live with me on the Facebook group. I hope you guys have a wonderful night, day, weekend, whenever you are listening to this. And as always, stay magical.
This was the Talk About the Magic podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay magical.